So we'll be ready to get started in a moment. Welcome, welcome, and good day to you. Today we're going to be covering how you can stop presenting. That doesn't mean you can ditch PowerPoints forever, I'm afraid, but how you can stop presenting and start persuading. So I know we've got a couple of people here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Say hello in the chat. Any questions throughout, please do put them in the chat. I'm happy to answer your specific questions. And also, what I should say is that you will get a recording of this webinar, and I'll give you a PDF of the slides as well, because today I'm going to leave you, I'm going to leave you with some techniques that you can start to apply bit by bit. Just try one thing, what's something new that really aligns to this whole theme of how to stop presenting and how to start persuading and influencing people. So I'm going to share that with you afterwards, and those are things that you can use immediately. Just practice them to yourself, practice them in front of the mirror. I get my clients to do that. So I think I'm going to kick off now. And we've got about half an hour today because I'm sure you're all very busy. It's coming up towards the end of the year. Hope you're getting ready for Christmas. I can't believe I just said that. Anyway, let's get going. So what I'm going to cover today is something that comes up a lot with my clients. It's about how can I be more influential? How can I be more persuasive? How can I do that to get my projects funded, to get included into more projects, to get more visibility in the organization, to get buy-in for my projects? How can I get a secondment, or how can I land the role that I've always wanted, or a promotion? There's many ways in which persuasion, and this doesn't mean pulling the wool over people's eyes, where persuasion and influence will help you both internally and externally. So sometimes I find that we think we're communicating, and actually we're not. We're updating, we're presenting, we're reporting. Now, that might be very valid and very useful, particularly if you're looking at scientific data, for example, but it doesn't really shift hearts and minds. It doesn't really shift decisions. So the techniques I'm going to share with you will help you to progress your projects, progress your career, get really influential and visible in your organization, to leave people feeling as though, wow, I really learned something today. I changed my mind on something, and I'm really bought into the project that's just been described to me. So say hello if you've just joined, and I will answer questions in the chat, and you'll get a recording and the slides afterwards, so you can refer to it. And the slides do contain tools that you can use now. So we do think we're communicating, and I appreciate today this is a workshop. I am presenting to you, but I'm not going to be sitting here reading off of slides. Yes, I will have some slides, but I'm going to demonstrate techniques that will help you. And when we think about persuasion, influence, I've already talked about some of the ways it can help your career. Well, studies have shown that if you master persuasion and influence, you are 3.5 times more likely to land an executive position. So executive at that highest level. So just imagine that 3.5 times increases your chances of a promotion, increases your chances of getting that role that you've always wanted. And I'm sure it applies to other layers of the organization. The leaders that do this are really successful. I've worked with many people who have come from very technical backgrounds. There's always details and techniques involved in what we do. But when we shift that to storytelling, when we shift that with some of the techniques I'm about to explain today, we really do help our chances of getting a promotion, getting that budget, and really being involved in projects that are going to help us and help our career move forward. Okay, so now I am going to find my slides and share them with you. Ding, ding, ding. There we go. Let's make sure, let's put them on slide speaker. I didn't do that before I started talking. Bear with me a second. So that's just what we're going to cover today. Any questions, put them in the chat. But have any of you ever had that feeling of, Oh my goodness, I'm actually reading from a spreadsheet. I've been asked to present and I'm updating. I'm reading from a spreadsheet. Or have you been in a presentation where you felt that this is actually not very engaging? That person's reading from a spreadsheet. I certainly have. And I've probably been guilty of it myself when I was in house, because when we're in house in an organization, perhaps we're not always taught these skills, but perhaps we can see other people how they do them and what we can learn from them. What if you're in an organization, watch some of the speakers that make an impression on you and just jot down something, one thing that they do that you think, do you know what? I could try that. I could do that without being fake or inauthentic. So please do feel free to say, yep, Sarah, I've seen that before. Yes, a wifey, yes, or just say hello in the chat and do ask any questions. So let's get into it. I think here's the slide. So, are we giving updates? Are we driving outcomes? Are we shifting those hearts and minds? Because it could be that we're presenting. It could be that presenting data, and I work a lot in pharma, medtech, biotech. And do not get me wrong, that those industries and many other industries, particularly in the STEM sectors, rest on data. It is the backbone. And does it feel confusing sometimes to get to a level in your career where you feel, hang on a minute, I'm really good at what I do. I understand my craft, my area of business, what I'm speaking about, but I'm not getting buy-in to any projects. I'm not getting those promotions. And the chances are that we're presenting updates. And even if you have specifically been asked, present an update, there's a way you can do it. There's a way you can do it. So this can be used for internal presentations, external presentations. Even if you're asked to give a motivational speech, you can use some of these techniques to ask questions. Does this sound familiar? When did you experience this? So we want to move from this idea of presenting, where I'm giving an update, to persuading. And persuading doesn't mean trying to, hoodwink people. It has to come from an authentic place, which I'm sure you all do, otherwise you wouldn't be here. We want to move to that point where it's not just information or data, but by the end of this meeting, we're going to agree how we move forward. It's the move from information to action. It's the move from, yeah, thanks for the update, to let's do this. Does any of this sound familiar? Have you experienced this? Oh, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Lovely to have you here. So this is something I see a lot of. And, when I joined a huge healthcare company. It was pharmaceuticals, medical devices, medical nutrition. And within 1 week of being there, I was told, you're going to present no, 2 weeks actually. I liked your strategy, Sarah. I want you to present it in front of the whole EMEA organization. And my face was like, you up? Because it's 200 people on a big stage in Singapore, the biggest crowd I've ever presented to, the biggest audience, and I was nervous. Of course, preparation is key. And I started reworking my slides, adding to them, adding information, cue cards all over the place. They were probably comfort blankets. And then I just thought, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm never going to share the story of why government affairs is going to help you, because if we don't solve this labelling decision, our company stands to lose £1 million. That's more compelling than saying, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. Let me update you. I'm telling a story there about something that's specifically going to help a shared goal. And it really elicits discussion and feedback as well, actually. Bit about me very briefly, because we've got half an hour today. I've been coaching for 10 years. I work across many, many different sectors. Here's just a snapshot of some of the organisations and individuals from those organisations that I've worked with. Prior to that, I had 20 years in corporate affairs, which is a posh word for comms, government affairs, patient advocacy, internal communications, external communications. But mine was really focusing on the channels and how you do it, rather than some of these broader areas that we know are so important in leadership, what we're talking about today, influence and persuasion. And it comes up in every single coaching program I run, in every single team, with every single individual. It comes up time and time again in terms of I'm not being listened to, I'm being ignored, I'm not getting these opportunities. So it's something I really do focus on with my coaching, and particularly with the amazing scientists, functional experts I work with from pharma, healthcare, you name it. I particularly work in the STEM sectors because I've had a broad experience in pharma. I also worked in the NHS, which is all about influence and persuasion when you're in it. So that's something I've brought across to my coaching practice, and I work with the Healthcare Business Women's Association as well. And I've definitely had that experience as I was describing that trip to Singapore, where I thought, hang on a minute. Right, if I've got to fill 45 minutes on stage, I better fill 45 minutes on stage. And then I just stopped myself. I thought, this is crazy. The people are just going to lose the thread. It's going to be really boring. So I thought, right, okay, when I'm thinking about PR, what am I trying to do? Build a reputation, protect a reputation, really get people on board with a narrative, a story. And that's what we're talking about today. So, have any of you ever had a presentation thrown at you at the last minute? What did it feel like? Update or persuasion and influence? Put it in the chat. I'd love to know. I'd love to hear if your experiences are the same as some of my clients that I work with. Okay, let's move on. So we're going into the 3 Ps, which I talk about quite frequently, the 3 pillars of persuasion. Let's get right into it. And these are things, again, you can take away today because you'll have a recording and I'll send you a PDF of the slides. Now then, we all have a corporate script, especially if you're working in a large organization, and that's great. Using the language of the organization is important. Understanding who's in the room is really, really important. Having an understanding of some of the behaviours of people when presentations are being delivered, when talks are being given. That's really, really important. But we don't want to be too stiff and corporate. We want to connect with genuine belief. So your project, it sounds simple, but you really need to believe in it. Why? Because you want to bring people with you. You might want budget. You might want somebody to come to your team on an assignment. You might want to build your team up and their visibility and their persuasion in the organization. It might be because you've got a piece of data that tells us if we don't do this, the company is not going to remain competitive. If you run your own business, similar. It might be that you've worked in a service area before, somebody's investing in your business, you have to talk their language, read the room. So by all means, understand the corporate scripts, the corporate words, but don't stick too much to, oh, I've got to remember every one of our 10 corporate values and whack them in my presentation. No, believe in what you're doing. And if you can't do that, and it's not nerves, we all get nervous sometimes when we're presenting and speaking, then think about, okay, have I got enough buy-in to this project already? Have I done my homework? I've got this great vision, but have I spoken to anyone about the actual alignment around the project before the meeting? What's going on here? Because if you aren't sold, then other people won't be. You need to show up with confidence. Easier said than done, isn't it? Because public speaking and presenting and getting buy-in for projects or going to an interview or speaking externally is pretty nerve-wracking. I find it nerve-wracking still because I get a bit excited and I have to calm myself down. But for some of us, it's about nerve, it's about that confidence. So we really need to work on being our conviction. And conviction doesn't mean I'm going to hit you over the head with this message until you get it. It's about having that body language, that tone of voice, owning the room, not in an ego-driven way, but having that clarity, that authority, that succinctness of your message in your body language, the tone you're using. It has to align with your words. Because if we say something such as, well, we need to buy into this project because it's going to save us 2 million a year. That's not very convincing. I know that's a crass example. I know I won't get a BAFTA for that one. But anyway, that won't necessarily convince people. But if we say, well, we've done the research And we know that if we fail to address this manufacturing issue and fail to introduce AI, we could be delaying production cycles by 30 days, and our competitors are producing treatments, drugs, whatever it is, in 15 days. So having that really clear conviction and confidence and the ability to own the room. Remember, as human beings, we judge people within the first 7 seconds of seeing people. We can really bring that back a bit if people have a negative first perception, but it's quite difficult. It's the human survival instinct. So by all means, put your questions, your experiences in the chat, any questions, and I'll get to them at the end. But we need that conviction. We need that poise. So if I'm going into a room, for example, with, let me pick a pharma example. I've got a brilliant communications project. I think it's brilliant. It's going to help the company shape its perception in X, Y, and Z. But if I'm sitting down in front of a senior medical director who's going to sign this project off or not, I better make sure I've done my preparation. I better make sure I understand some of the concerns and questions he might raise. I better understand that individual. So understanding the room is important, being authentic, showing conviction, and also your poise in the room. Let's look at pillar number 2, positioning. We need to frame the conversation before it begins. Persuasion is often won or lost in the setup. How do we do this? Today, what I'd like to share with you is some data about how medical nutrition is saving the NHS X million dollars per year in terms of hospital stays. That's a bold claim. It's not a real claim, by the way. I've just made it up. But if I'm in front of a customer, what I'm going to share with you today is X that's going to do this. What is it? What does it do? What's the impact of it? It has to be anchored to a shared goal. Now, sometimes in meetings, it might feel like it's not a shared goal, or it might be you have the experience of working with someone or speaking with someone or sharing something with a group that are quite hostile. They're not really bought into what you do. But somewhere, if you're in that room sharing what you're doing, what your plans are, there must be a shared goal somewhere. We all want this project to succeed because, and usually it's going to, let's face it, if we work in organizations, it'll usually be focused around money or people. Unfortunately, sometimes it's about different resourcing decisions, which ultimately is about money as well. It's about relationships, those kinds of things. It's about what the external world is doing. The world is changing so rapidly. We've had a year of poly change, many, many different changes. So we need to anchor this to a shared goal. If we can implement this digital manufacturing solution where all the manufacturing sites can talk to each other through technology, we reduce our waste output by 10% over the next year. That in turn saves us this amount of money. That's just another example. I've literally just made it up, but I'm framing it. I'm framing it to the audience in a way that there'll be a shared goal there. And we need to define the stakes. What we would need to say is, we're going to do this in order to do this, and it's going to help us with this specific shared goal. Unfortunately, if we don't do this, our wastage levels are going to remain at the same levels of 15% today, and that's going to cost us X million to dispose of next year. Again, I've just made that up, but that's an example of what are the stakes? What are the stakes? Why is this really important to people? And this might be a presentation, or it might be a one-to-one conversation that you're having. And I've worked in what you call an enabling function when I was in pharma and healthcare. I was in logistics as well. And sometimes those reputational shifts can be quite difficult to communicate, but there will be something there that is a shared goal. For example, if we don't understand, let me just take an example of patient advocacy, working with patient groups, very important. if we don't understand the concerns of patients, then there's a high chance that our clinical trial won't be matched to the right endpoints. Typically, this can waste X many dollars per annum. And it also means that we don't have the direct feedback to make sure that the endpoints are correct and we can have an effective commercial launch, something like that. So again, if you've got any questions or comments, please do leave them in the chat. Or if you want to tell me what are you drinking today? You've got something on your desk, tea, coffee? I've got strawberry water, my favourite. So we need to anchor it to a shared goal. We all want this project to succeed, define the stakes, and what's the win? So sometimes, and I know today I'm doing a workshop, you're invited to comment, you're invited to join in. Please do follow up with me afterwards. If something isn't clear, happy to have a chat with you. But there's got to be a win-win. And sometimes we're just focused on, I need to communicate this and update and get this done and dusted as quickly as possible. We're not thinking about the other person. And here's an extra tip for you. If we can put ourselves in the audience's shoes, then guess what? Sometimes it takes the attention off of us about what's going on here, all these fears that are whirring around. So if we can focus on their win, not to blindside people, it's got to be legitimate. You've got to believe in it. When we looked at pillar one, we've got to believe in what we're doing. How does it solve my problem? What's in it for me? That's what it's like in most sales situations. And we have to appeal to people's emotions. I know we don't talk about emotions, or dare I say it, feelings in business very often, or we do more than we used to, but sometimes we're just so busy, aren't we, running around doing the numbers, etc. But if we can appeal to people's feelings in an authentic, legitimate way, in a way that's with integrity, then we really sort of help bring our stories alive. We help to get that alignment. We help with that persuasion. We help with that influence, the ability to influence other people. Because human beings in general, they will make a decision, usually very quickly, based on emotion. And if it's a yes decision, then they'll justify it with logic. That's how human beings work. So if we can just sort of grab that emotional anchor straight away, such as, when we go ahead with this project to shift our manufacturing site, it's going to create X many roles in a market where we can employ people at this cost, helping us to really manage our numbers for the year 24-25. Example, but say it with conviction, say it with passion. So the next pillar, participation. Persuasion is a collaborative action. So even though this is a webinar format today, we need to really consider and stop. Am I talking at people? Am I guiding them to the conclusion? But am I also allowing them to feel that they've found the path, they've found the way forward? Because people tend to support what they create. Ask questions along the way. I've suggested to you, put questions in the chat, follow up with me afterwards. If you'd like some more information, book a call. The link's at the end of this. But people tend to support what they've created. I don't know if this sounds familiar. I've worked in organisations and in teams where I've been brought into a change project. I have no idea what the charter is. I don't know any of the people. I don't know why we're doing it. Now, that's not necessarily going to be important for everybody because we're all different personality types and blends. But for many people, we want to be included. We want to be seen. We want to be heard. We want to be valued. It creates that safety that all human beings need. So how can you get your teams, your colleagues, or the person that's interviewing you, how can you ask them questions? How can you get them involved? How can you ask that really meaningful question that means something in an interview about, well, how will this role carry forward your organisation? Or I notice your organisation has been making acquisitions in this area, buying new companies. How will this role help to bring together those organisations to enable performance? Ask questions. And honestly, one of the best ways you can do this is actually start persuading people before you get in the room. If you have people that you've worked with before, you've got relationships that you've built, relationships that you want to build, Then do it before the presentation, speak to people, show them your slides, get that feedback. Choose people from all sorts of different functions. Finance, for example. Sometimes I've been in meetings where I really have had objections and I've had to put it into a financial context. I've had to prepare and have the numbers in my back pocket. But I've gone to people before I started presenting my plan, my initiative, my strategy to preempt questions. I've taken twice as long to prepare as I would usually because I think you need to bake in that time to get those questions answered so you can be ready for them in the presentation. You might even ask for their support in the meeting or the presentation. There's nothing wrong with that. This is all part of strategy, the vision, the alignment, and then the execution. So you can present a vision, fantastic. But very soon, most of us want to get into execution. Great, how do we do it? But we need that alignment in the middle and we need that executional piece at the end. And very often, things can change along the way when we're executing a project. So we have to go back to that alignment. So it might not be the first time that you do this. You might have to do this a few times along the way of your strategy. So get people involved. Don't be shy. People love to help usually. And I found, very often when I ask, well, could you help me with this? Could I get your feedback on this? Even though people are really busy, generally most decent people like to help. So get people involved, have dialogue, not just monologue. So this is a line that I wanted to share with you in terms of a really good phrase you can use. You can start using this or your own variation of it, because what I want you to do is be authentic. I don't want you to pretend to be somebody that you're not and completely change your personality or your style. But this is a really, really good line that I teach most of my clients, and I have a number of different toolkits. With my clients, I work on specific phrases and techniques that fits in with them. It flexes their style, it adapts their style when they're dealing with different types of people. But we do work on techniques and tools and phrases to help them with these conversations, to really open minds, to be more persuasive. It's not about overly convincing and saying my way or the highway, but persuading and influencing. And as I said at the beginning, it's just one of the areas that comes up time and time and time again during my sessions with my clients and with teams, because you want your teams to work well together, to be the torchbearers for what you're doing. What would need to be true for this to work? What would we need to do for this project to work? How do you think we can take this forward for it to work? Something like that. Because very often what I've seen is that, and I know some of us are more sort of black and white, yes or no. If you get a question and it's maybe an objection, and you think, well, no, it wouldn't work that way, that automatically shuts people down, doesn't it? So they feel a bit silly. It doesn't feel great. It doesn't feel great. Remember, I talked about feelings before. Shh, don't tell anyone, but I did. But we want people to feel included, involved. People like to. In organisations, one of the phrases that comes up a lot is, I don't feel I belong. I don't believe I'm involved. And that's actually, I've had people in tears about it. They feel really isolated. It can feel lonely being a leader. So we want to bring people together. That could be your team. I used to do it all the time when I was leading teams, bring in my team, work with them as a group, some of them individually, because they're always going to have feedback and knowledge that I don't have. I've sat and demonstrated the benefits of this project in various meetings, and then a new piece of information has come to light. And I thought, hang on a minute, I thought my project was a really good idea. Felt a little bit hurt earlier on in my career. I kind of got over that quite quickly because I realised no need to do that. Put the ego aside, because you've got a piece of information that's going to make your project even better. Why does it work? It bypasses no. Remember when I said yes, no, and it opens us up to possibility. And I think we all want possibility. We all want our organisations to succeed, our business to succeed, our career to succeed. you're not arguing. It kind of sets up a confrontation, which again, I do a lot of work in terms of conflict coaching, working with people to improve work relationships. And sometimes it just starts from the smallest things. So maybe replace no with how, or where, oh, that's an interesting insight. Where does that come from? Help me to understand. Help me to understand. That's a good phrase. Depends on how you say it. Read the room. Remember what I said, read the room, understand the personalities. As I mentioned, you see the real barriers. It gives you areas where you think, oh, I might need to resolve this or work on this a bit more. And it really fosters that collaboration, that team collaboration. It's not just you on your own. You've got people helping you, even though it feels like an objection, they're helping you. And that helps you to build the relationships and think, wow, when Fred from Finance presented today, it was really interesting how he made me understand my part in this project, even though it might be something of an area of the business that I'm not very involved in. And this is a quick case study. I was working with somebody, and it's not the only person that I've worked on these programs with, a very bespoke program. And this is what I help people with a lot, taking you from a technical expert into an influential strategic leader, taking your team from dysfunctional or not functioning that well or not performing that well to high performance, particularly during these times of constant change. How do you stay steady and retain that high performance or build it? So you can see here the before and the after. We worked on the 3 Ps, on many more skills. We practiced them bit by bit, and she found, and again, it was finance. Again, I'm sorry, I'm not just singling out finance, by the way, it's just a coincidence. She found that her plans got buy-in, and they weren't before, because she was giving updates, she was giving numbers, and she had this strategic project across the organization that she had to land. The CEO said, I want you to land this project. We need to get these numbers. And it wasn't just about saying, we need these numbers. It's about storytelling. Why is it important? All of these things that I've talked about today, bang, she's going to be CFO within a matter of months. We worked together for 3 months. When I first met her, she wouldn't even speak up in a meeting. And I'm not trying to be blamey. We've all got our blind spots. She's very technical, very detailed, fantastic person at her job. Within a couple of months, she was standing up, presenting in big rooms and in a very influential manner. We did use disc profiling, understanding your natural style, to make sure that we weren't moving and creating somebody new, a caricature of herself. It was authentic and it played to her strengths, but we also allowed some adaptations, some flexibility in her style so she could speak to different types of people. She could speak to very talkative people that she found a bit difficult to deal with. She could talk to very detail-driven people and persuade them. So fantastic to work with her. It was really great to see. Example here, persuasion in practice. Now, I don't know where you are in the world. If you can tell me, pop it in the chat. I'm in the UK. David Attenborough, TV presenter. But actually, what he really does is he shifts nations. He shifts what people do in the natural world. Yes, he has a team, he has a structure behind him, he has resources. But if you think about how he talks, people of all ages, and I'm pretty sure he's known internationally, they love him. I've got young nieces and nephews that love him. The way that he tells the story, he doesn't, he talks about the science, but he tells stories. He talks about relationships, and he influences global opinion. It's very calm, it's very clear, it's very authoritative without needing to be loud, but it's authentic and it creates that trust. So again, you might say Barack Obama was a good speaker, a great orator, very commanding, very clear, very convincing. You might not have been an Obama supporter, but you can't argue with how he speaks in this way. You don't feel nervous, you feel calm, you feel reassured, you feel like you're in safe hands. And he really includes you. If you listen to how he speaks, He includes all of us in the narrative of the planet's future. He shifts countries and policies on this. So it's amazing to watch. And maybe you've got an example where you are. What does that person do that you love? Here's an extra hack for you before we wrap up. There's a 3-step impact frame that if you get a question and you think, oh my goodness, well, one of the things you could do, take a sip of water, you can repeat the question. Just take a 2-second pause. Or we could do it like this. Sometimes we rush to answer. Take 2 seconds before you answer, leave 2 seconds at the end, unless someone's talking all over you, in which case you can say, could I finish? Give the reasoning and close with impact. And there's an example. There's some example phrases here. Play with them, find one of your own in terms of something that will really convey that authority and that confidence. So we want to move our manufacturing site. Well, how do we do that? You want us to move the site? Yeah, absolutely. This is possible because we've seen this, and if we do it now, it's going to have this result. So there's an example here, and this is something you can use to actually deliver a message as well. There's 3 clear steps, and you can practice all of these. Think about those tricky questions, rehearse them. So when you're delivering a message or sharing a message, and when you're receiving a question. So that's an extra tip for you. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this workshop today, I'm going to share with you the slide deck. I'm going to send the recordings. If you've got any questions, please put them in the chat. I did have somebody earlier say, what do I do if I'm really, really nervous of speaking full stop? I hate to say it, but do more of it. Which is probably not what you want to hear, but there are things you can do. Slow down your breathing, drop your shoulders, prepare. You might need to over-prepare to start with and then find your rhythm. Focus on your audience. It gets you outside of your own mind and what you're worried about, because most people want to hear you succeed. They want to feel you're succeeding. So there's a number of different tips. You know, body posture. If I do this, my neck's really short. I think it's really short anyway. It hunches up. The airway's like this. There's too much carbon dioxide here. If I do that, just release and sit back and pull my shoulders down, it makes me feel more confident automatically. It feeds my body with that message of, I know what I'm doing, I can be assertive, I can be clear. So look out for the resources. I'll be sharing them with you. And I'd like to thank you for sharing this half an hour, 33 minutes actually, with me today. Any questions following this, then please drop me a message on LinkedIn. You can book a call. I'm on LinkedIn, or my email address is on my website, which is sarah-j.com. And have a great rest of the week. What's left of it. All right then, have a great day.